I'm Peter Conroy, and this is my story, The Thief Prince. A wealthy entrepreneur once funded an expedition to Africa. He set a large treasure cache resting at the source of the Nile. The man had always been fond of history, particularly that of the ancient world. The classical way of life seemed so much simpler to that of the modern age, yet so much more mysterious and engaging. One Egyptian tale spoke of an amulet passed through the royal dynasties, which held untold power and might. Aside from the legend, no other amulets were mentioned. The businessman examined several hieroglyphs of the great pharaohs. He noticed one similar between them all, an ankh. The man had learned of the ankh's significance from his history classes at Stanford. It symbolized eternal life and was carried by previous pharaohs as an amulet. That's it, he thought. The ankh is the magic amulet. By examining hieroglyphs of the last amulet bearer, he deciphered references to the Nile, to a giant lake, as well as a final, more confusing glyph. It showed a long, snaking line emanating from a big square. With the help of his best archaeologist, Nolan, he thought it could be ruled as a start, or beginning, much like square one. This was the best break he would get. So, he employed a full archaeological team and found himself exploring the source of the Nile. He scanned the area, seeing the great expanse of Lake Victoria, with no clue where to go from there. He began to wonder why he came in the first place. "Ow!" he exclaimed, cursing violently. He looked down to find a large stone in the ground, seemingly from nowhere. He thought to himself, "I could have sworn that I passed this spot 15 times and saw no stones." He tried and failed at hoisting it from the ground. The crew dug in this spot, excavating the entrance to a tomb. He felt like the chance discovery of this crypt was a sign to continue with the exploration. Brimming with excitement and relief, the man knew this would make him and his family rich for life. Having been sealed for centuries, the door would only open with dynamite. With that, the businessman and Nolan entered the tomb. The air had an eerie stillness. Nolan knew the pair was the first in millennia to walk, let alone breathe, in this vault. Judging by the limestone walls and ceiling, the place was utterly impenetrable. He knew this well, being an accomplished archaeologist and historian. There was no way anything could live down there. With flashlights, they traveled down the maze of corridors, allowing the light to illuminate the rough hall. The corridor soon shrunk slightly, eventually becoming a crawl space. Despite this, they carefully pressed on until their arrival to the burial chamber. Jewelry and trinkets lined the sarcophagus, while an ornate golden mask covered the face. The ankh they sought was in its hand. Upon reaching home, the man paid the crew their promised wage and sent them on their way. Since he funded the dig, the businessman claimed all of the treasure. He sold most of it to museums, while returning to America with his wealth and the amulet. Over the years, the man inexplicably amassed a huge media empire. By several accounts, it seemed to only be explained by magic. He assumed the name King and appropriately named it King Media Incorporated. The empire quickly overshadowed competitors like Viacom and News Corp. Nolan felt entitled to more, judging by his friendship with the king, as well as his contribution to the discovery. Already jealous of the king, he quickly developed a deep hatred for those of wealth, who always took what they wanted. Because of this, he entered the king's house under the guise of friendship as a guest, and in the night stole the necklace. Fearing for his life, he fled, changing his name to Soren. This allowed him to hide from the extensive resources of the king and avoid his wrath while Soren plotted his revenge. Many years later, Mr. King's son, named Tristan, had a promising future. He was young, clever, and quite beloved among the people there. He was raised as a prince, with all of the luxuries a kid could want. He soon came to be known as the Prince, since he was the heir of the vast empire built by his father. With his father's connections and his own good looks, he soon gained celebrity status. Public opinion found he was quite attractive, with his dark mop of chestnut hair, ice-blue eyes, and a lopsided grin that caused quite the stir. Indeed, he was quite the eligible bachelor. In his time there were many worthy ladies, yet none can compare to the lovely Serena. His parents knew her family through their country club. They all expressed their approval of the boy, yet Serena didn't quite feel the same way. Tristan would compose poems and sing her songs, yet she never seemed to reciprocate his affection. He was determined, however, and resolved to find a way to be more than just a friend. Such an opportunity came when he caught sight of her on the waterfront. He had a grand bouquet of flowers presented to her. It was a beautiful array of yellows, blues, purple, and some pink. It caused 5 of the other ladies to faint with the hope that such a radiant gift was intended for them. To his surprise, Serena immediately blushed, giving her face a deep red. "Oh, you shouldn't have, Tristan. They truly are gorgeous." "I'm so glad you like them," he said. After an awkward silence, he stammered, "Want to get dinner sometime?" He looked into her amber eyes, which complemented her porcelain skin, hoping to see the same love he always felt. Her cheeks flushed, giving Tristan some hope. However, she gave the classic, "That's so sweet, but no," face, as if fawning over a puppy in the pet store. This was apparent on her exterior, yet she was very attracted to him. However, she heard her grandmother's voice in the back of her head saying, "If you are completely sure about a man, then it is not your time to be with him." To Serena, this just didn't feel right. Tristan's request didn't go as she had always expected it. For this reason, she immediately excused herself, citing a very important engagement, claiming that she will see him again. Unknown to the public, his parents, and Serena, Tristan had a dark side. Left alone on the lawn, he began to feel his angry thoughts bubble to the surface. In the past, he often turned to thievery when he felt bad in order to make himself feel better. A gang of thieves took him under its wing, and even taught him how to steal with nobody knowing. He became an accomplished pickpocket, and often stole watches, wallets, and iPods right under people's noses. He justified himself in that he truly felt alive with the rush and stress of what he did. Growing up in a wealthy family, he often disregarded the things handed to him. A man who has everything has a different view of value. Anything of worth is treasured for the attempt or act of attainment. Since any hopes for Serena seemed quite impossible, he thought it would benefit from a more impossible solution. In this way, he found he could be coping as well as finding something truly special for her. With that, he set off to plan his heist. As usual, he browsed the many shops in the town for something to strike his fancy. Amidst the hustle of the old town section, he came across a very curious shop. "Soren's Special Selections," Tristan read. It was a dilapidated, unkempt building lodged between the main buildings, almost as if out of place. He noted the post beside the window, which read, "Beware all thieves. Those who take what they can, or practice sleight of hand, are unaware what they're asking for. Indeed, they have many troubles in store. Each thief, whether he is rich, poor, weak, or strong, will pay his own toll before long." This brought some concern to Tristan, and doubts began to form. He didn't often come across notes of this intense, threatening nature. A sense of dread briefly surrounded him like a cloud of flies follows a cow. Like all young ones, he quickly ignored it and went into the shop. In the back of the store, he noticed a cupboard. Scanning the room, he deftly opened it, eyeing the bag on the top shelf. Inside, he found a strange silver amulet. He couldn't recall the name, but it looked like the letter T, but with an oval on the top. He saw the hieroglyphs around its loop, and then remembered the Egyptian pharaohs that held this in the pictures.